Hello, I'm Paddy Delaney, and welcome to Integrated Infrastructure, a podcast dedicated to bringing you news and views from industry leaders involved in the development, design, construction and management of the many built forms that make up Australia's integrated infrastructure. This is the fifth episode of Integrated Infrastructure, and after two very industry-focused episodes, I'm very happy to bring you a personal career story of hard work and success. From a guy that took the opportunities that were in front of him, took risks, made personal sacrifices, and went from being a site labourer with no tertiary education to having a master's in real estate and being the general manager of an international property firm. He's a good mate of mine, and it's me that's bigging him up. He's a humble guy. So I'll stop talking and introduce you to Ken Hawkins. Kenny, welcome to the Integrated Infrastructure podcast. Thanks ever so much for coming on today.
Pleasure. Thanks for asking me. It's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Let's get straight to it. First of all, it's worth saying we actually know each other really well. And I reached out to you specifically because I think you've got a great story to tell. And one of the main purposes of this podcast is to give something back to people in the industry, especially at the moment with COVID, especially with the resurgence of it in Melbourne, and it's creeping back in New South Wales. And again, people are going to be worried about their jobs, worried about their careers. People are getting made redundant and retrenched and all sorts of things. So I think it's really important to have a good story to tell. And you are very modest, too modest, but I'm going to try and get your story out of you because you took some risks and they paid off. So I'll stop talking now. But Kenny, tell us what your job is now and then take us straight back to when you left school and, what did you want to be? What was your plan?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. I am flattered for you to ask me to be part of this. And yeah, I've never really thought I've had much of a story to tell. I just get on with it and just do my work and things like that. But right now, I'm the general manager for CBRE, looking after a little group of assets in the Brisbane CBD office market for Ash Morgan. And I guess if you want to go right back to leaving school.
Take us back, Kenny, take us back. What year was it for a start?
What was it? It was 1992. And I think I was asked that it was probably within my best interest to actually leave school. I was probably a little bit...
smart for them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, totally. Probably a little bit, like most teenage lads, they're, distracted and just want to get out, earn money and sport and things like that. So, I left school after I got my school certificate in year 10. And went straight into an apprenticeship in landscape gardening, which was great for the first few years. I was outdoors every day and I was doing my trade certificate and going to TAFE one day a week. So learning some good things about, various trades. The good thing about landscape gardening is that you can learn a bit about brickwork, woodwork, and then plants and all those things. So it's quite a wide experience of, a lot of hands-on trades, and it can sort of help you decide whether you want to go into a specific thing, and it could even be botany or into, plants specifically, or you could then want to go into more construction, be it concrete or bricklaying or more timber work. So it was a good trade to go into, but I found myself after a few years of that just not really enjoying it. But at least I finished the trade certificate and got that qualification. I then sort of got into the hospitality side of things and worked through food and beverage services. Also did cellar operations and, worked at a few bars and things like that, and also worked at a country club. So I learned a bit about wine and, how a fine restaurant works and things like that. From there, I went overseas, did a little bit of traveling, did some island hopping through Indonesia and surfing and stuff like that. But that came to a halt after a few months and had to get back to reality, and found myself working for Mirvac as a labourer. My uncle, who was working for Mirvac at the time, got me a job there, and I was working as a labourer on the tools, and on a few construction sites there. So from there, I sort of went into, I guess, the compliance side of things and became the health, safety and environment manager for construction New South Wales.
How did that happen? How did you go from being a labourer to being the health and safety manager of New South Wales? So that's a big leap. You went from landscape gardening to surfing to
Yeah. Well, I guess I admitted a little bit there, and that was the fact that I'd lost my driver's license. Prior going overseas, I'd lost my driver's license. Just nothing too reckless, just a accumulation of losing points. But, so when I came back to be the labourer for Mirvac, it was just an infield job. It was near the railway station, and being 19 at the time, I think. I was never really going to go past just a few months until I got my driver's license back.
Yeah.
But I was going to leave, and they said, look, and at the time, I think I'd already enrolled to do a HR course at North Sydney TAFE. So I started doing that, and I think Mirvac recognised that I sort of was looking at the HR side of things, and so the job came to an end, and I was going to move on. And they said, well, look, how about we'll, try and find something for you in the office, and they needed somebody to assist the existing health, safety, environment manager on more of the admin and inspection side of things, and so that's what they had offered me, and I took the role up probably within.
Had you ever was there always a plan to come into some sort of construction property sort of world? Your uncle was in it. He was long term Mirvac as well, wasn't he? He was he was. He'd been there many years. He was the construction director at the time, and I think he'd pretty much done Mirvac's first high rise, being 1 York Street, and he'd been there a while. That was my mum's brother, but I really didn't have any intention to get into the construction field. Being that labourer with Mirvac was purely going to be temporary. However, I just sort of, I guess I showed a little bit of initiative in going back to TAFE to learn a different field. And I guess they probably saw that as well and thought, well, hang on, you do work pretty hard. We can see that. So, how about we find something for you? And I think, in those days, construction sites, they were open Monday to Saturday from, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m, 6 days a week. Well, Saturdays were usually only till 3 p.m. So to stick that out for a few years and, still be pretty keen and motivated at the end of that, I think, sort of showed that, he's a hard worker, and, maybe we want to keep him on. It might be not, his ideal thing, but let's open something up for him. And then, if it doesn't work out, well, something else might be around the corner. And definitely construction sites have changed a bit. I think some of the sites up here don't even work Saturdays anymore. So, so it was a bit harder back then, but, I think that's what it was. It was probably just showing, that you get in, you get the job done. There's not too much resistance on having to do something. And, probably, allowed that offer to come my way. So what was the time period between you, sort of, accepting that role in the office and thinking, I'm going to give this a go, to you then becoming the New South Wales Health and Safety Manager and it was for the construction business, wasn't it?
Correct, yeah. So in the lead up to 2000 and the early 2000s, Mirvac Construction had a lot of work on. They were doing the Olympic Village. They had a number of construction sites in and around the harbour and on the North Shore. It was quite big. So between myself and colleague, we managed quite a few sites, and from compliance and training and, getting everybody certified to do the various, roles with certain pieces of equipment and things like that. And it was probably a few years into that role that it was a bit of recognition that needed to have a bit more of a qualification on like the safety sciences side of thing, as it was called at University of New South Wales at the time. And so it's probably around about 2002 where Mirvac offered to pay for me to go to UNSW and do a safety practitioner's qualification. And I did that for a couple of years as well. So that was the first time Mirvac put me through uni. And I sort of stayed in that role probably till about 2006 in the construction team for New South Wales. And then it was around about end of 2006 that there was actually another organisation, a construction firm, that had made an offer for me to come across in the safety role. And I won't lie, it was much better money, and so I was quite interested in that, and that got back to one of the senior leaders within the asset management side of the business, and they said, no, someone with 9 years experience within Mirvac, we can't just let walk out the door. So if Mirvac Construction aren't going to make a good offer to keep you, well, we will. And so they got on the front foot.
Stop a minute, because that just you just skips over like a whole series of things. That means that, how did the guys in the asset management know about you? What was it that took you from, why did they invest in you? I mean, the Kenny that I know, this is a work setting that I know, is so naturally inquisitive and eager to learn and look at different things, and always so helpful and willing to do different things. So I can only imagine that you're exactly that person in work as well, and that those are the behaviours that made people notice you and want to invest in you. So the first time with your safety sciences qualification.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, good point. Looking at how that bridge happened, I guess going back to it, it's what the asset management guys had sort of had come in, and they came to us in the construction team and said, basically, what are some of your procedures? What processes do you put in place to make sure each individual site has a plan, and all these other procedures that fall off that? And I met with them and sort of described that, we have a workplace safety management plan. We have risk assessments that then fall off that from high risk works. And some of those then will develop procedures out of those things. And so it was that willingness to sort of show them and walk them through what we do on construction sites. That then, a number of months down the track, when they heard I was leaving, they were probably, said, oh, well, Ken knows what he's talking about in this field. How about he comes across to our team as a designated health, safety and environment manager for all our facilities across Australia? And so I guess, the same processes and practices can be implemented on any site. It doesn't need to be a construction site, but being a construction site, it is so stringent. There's a lot of rules and codes in place, and so therefore it is quite regimented in that way. And we needed to sort of apply that methodology into a shopping centre, for instance. There isn't as many as risky things in a shopping centre, but definitely there's some processes that are more back of house, which, you need to do a risk assessment on. You need to develop procedures around that, have a plan in place for all various things. So, I guess it was...
Did you ever dream that you would make, did you ever have a thought, I'd really like to move from I presume this other role offer that you had was in another contractor, so to go and do the same thing
Correct.
again, or for somebody else, maybe in a more senior position with more opportunity. But so that was your career path. Somebody from over here said, oh, Ken, we quite like you. Why don't you just turn right really quickly and come and work with us? Was that a plan?
I guess it was well, not really. I mean, most people would, follow the same industry, and if you're working construction and another company was poaching you, you'd go work in construction again. So I guess I had definitely two significantly different offers. One was working in very passive, ongoing concern assets, rather than a construction site that may live for 2.5 years and then you go to a new construction site. I guess, I'd done construction sites for a number of years, and, there's something very monotonous about telling the same guy to put his hard hat on a number of times. So I was welcoming a change, and I didn't know much about shopping centres other than, going in and shopping at them. And I didn't know much about industrial estates and office buildings either. So it was going to be a new challenge, and with that comes new experiences and obviously, new credentials. So
did you perceive a risk in making that change at the time?
Not really, no, because I guess the two senior guys that were in the asset management team in facilities management, Steve Butler and Chris Luscombe, they very supportive, very knowledgeable and experienced guys. And so I always saw that, just that those people, as, you're always going to learn something from them. Whether it doesn't work out, there's always the construction field to potentially fall back on. But I guess the passive asset side of things for Mirvac was growing. They'd taken on a new company, and a whole lot of assets came into the portfolio, and I think there was roughly 120 assets when you include hotels and car parks there at the time. So it was going to be, geographically a much bigger area to cover, as well as the type of assets that you'd be managing. But it was a new challenge, and it was, I think anything new is always exciting. So yeah, definitely.
And so far we've really talked about opportunity and the willingness to take that opportunity, and then you got your career going in one direction, and somebody offers you another opportunity. You go, yeah, okay, I'm going to go and do that. But you hadn't quite taken that risk yet, had you? In terms of the much bigger opportunity that came your way a bit further down the line. How did that opportunity come, and why did that arrive?
I guess short answer is probably right place to the right time. Not just the right place at the right time, but also the right stage in my life. So, it's the chap I mentioned before, Chris Luscombe, was on an executive leadership team, and Mirvac had partnered with a university, and so they were taking nominated Mirvac staff to do a master's. So they were looking for candidates for that, and I was accepted into that cohort. And I guess always kind of looking at opportunities to better your career and move up the ladder, I guess. And so that was offered to me by Chris, and who I'm very much thankful to this day, because it then allowed me to pivot to into the role I am today, which is managing, the whole of asset, not just the compliance side of things. So
we didn't get to see you for 3 years whilst you were studying it, but that's beside the point. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, that's true.
So there were, you were presented with the opportunity to go down the master's route with Mirvac, which was no small thing. You'd been with them a long time, you'd proven yourself, and they wanted to invest in you. But the kind of first risk in that element, there was not necessarily risk, but there's a cost. There's a time cost, a personal cost to you in making that commitment, wasn't there? Because it took up you worked really hard on that.
Yeah, definitely. It's like anything like a master's is going to take time and devotion and things like that. But I was sort of tapped on the shoulder and asked the question, and I realised that I had no excuses to say no. There was no reason, and you need to look at sometimes those critical moments in life when somebody does tap you on the shoulder and offer you something, and not to dismiss it, but to actually give it good consideration and go, well, can I do this? Am I going to get this offer again? What does it involve? What would it actually cost if I was to do this off my own bat? And I just didn't have an excuse to not do it. And so, and there was, people within the course that had kids, had a family, and were still able to do it. So there was definitely no excuses.
I remember you talking about your final project. Can't remember if it was a dissertation or if it was just a big project at the end. And you'd learnt so much. You were teaching me loads of stuff. It was like the circular economy of the building, wasn't it? And the capture of water and stuff like that. That you were really getting into it and excited about it.
Oh, I was, no doubt. I think to do a master's or even a degree or anything like that, you need to actually be interested in it. The thesis I was doing at the end there was green roofs.
Yeah.
And I did love it. It had so many benefits, to the planet, to the building, to the owners, to the tenants, to the users, to the public. And so it was a good project. It was quite lengthy, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And throughout the whole course in the various modules I was doing, I learned a whole new field on managing assets, be it the financial side, the leasing, risk management and development as well. So it was great. I don't know if I'd go back and do a master's just yet, but I do plan on doing something else very soon. But and that just opened up the doors to be able to shift then from being in compliance and that side of the business, and move into the whole asset management field. And I guess being in compliance, and there's probably people out there that can sympathise with me a little bit. You do just feel like this internal consultant that's always on the periphery and never really at the pointing into the business where decisions are made, and those decisions can affect the share price or things like that. And I was always felt like I was just called in when something went wrong or they needed assistance, and then you may not see that person or that site for another 6 months. Whereas I guess, being able to do that shift in business, certainly I've a hell of a lot more fulfilled on a daily basis in what I do. So, yes, it can be daunting to make that shift, but it's worth it in the end, I think.
You kind of making it sound like it was a seamless transition into asset management, but actually there were some big decisions. So you finished the masters, and then the next opportunity came along. But for some people, that wouldn't look like an opportunity.
Is that going to Queensland?
No, no. As in, you came out of compliance and into asset management, but you actually made a big sacrifice to change roles, didn't you? To properly change tact in your career.
Yeah, going from health, safety, environment to asset management. You mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a big financial. Hit.
Haven't even touched on that side of things, and I guess that probably shows that at the time it wasn't as important for me. I was looking for that fulfillment on a daily basis and being involved with more important decisions rather than being that consultant on the periphery. I hadn't even considered that just now, but financially it was a step down in pay for a number of years to be able to then step over into property and asset management and take a much more junior role and basically earn my stripes, so to speak, and then learn what I needed to learn to then work my way back up.
And that's the point that I think is so interesting for people out there at the moment who might be transitioning in their career. They might have to transition in their career. Is that the point that you made that sacrifice and you took the short-term pain, even though the short-term might have been a couple of years in the grand scheme of things. You've forgotten about it. You're imagining. You've got rose-tinted glasses on because you've taken that pain and now things come out of it. But and I'm not saying that you were necessarily in pain at the time, but it was a big sacrifice and it was a risk. Lots of people. I'm a recruiter. People come to me all the time and say, "Oh, I really want to go and do that." That's really hard to do. It doesn't, and you need people that are going to back you, and you'd networked internally, you had people supporting you, the company was supporting you, people were willing to take a risk on you because of the way that you'd worked previously in the behaviours, but it was still a big risk for you to pivot your career Because there's lots of people who try and do it and then fail, and they find themselves flapping. But there's also some really good success stories out there. So
I think as you say, it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain, and you always sort of end up spending to what you earn anyway. And I guess I had a little buffer in there. There were some things that weren't absolute necessities, be it holidays or short surf trips and whatnot. So you do make those sacrifices, and and you got to think of more the long term. And would I do it again? Absolutely. I think that it's easy now saying it with hindsight, and halfway through one of my assignments I might have had a completely different opinion, but that I think that you got to think of long term, and you might take a drop in pay, but it's short term. You need to evaluate that. And
that's fantastic. You've had some good mentors along the way. You've mentioned a couple of them already in terms of is it Steve and Chris? From Mirvac. I think you've been a mentor to people as well, haven't you? There's people that you've brought along and through their careers. What advice would you give to anybody right now who's facing a career decision, whether by choice or by sort of circumstance because of COVID, and looking at their options for the future?
I don't like giving too much advice, and especially when things are very uncertain at the moment. But I guess you need to obviously look internally and see, what your ability is. Can you actually do a new role? Are you qualified for it? Do I need to upskill before I make that jump? I mean, I'm fairly risk averse because of my career history, obviously in risk management previously. So I like to make sure it's a bit of a evaluated decision before doing it. But I think it's a tough one at the moment. I think it can't always be based on money. You need to make sure that you are happy on a day-to-day basis on what you are doing, that what you are doing, you feel is, the planet or the people around you are going to benefit from. That it's considered approach and not just a knee-jerk reaction to be it COVID or to a particular boss or something like that. You need to it's a bit more of a long game. So you put me on the spot with that one, Paddy.
I have. No, you've answered it very well. I really appreciate it. Hey, look, I'm in the office because we've got a very big office here and not enough people in it because not everybody's working in the office. But you're in the office in Queensland, right? The restrictions there are far less onerous, certainly than New South Wales and definitely than Victoria right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's much more relaxed up here. I think I actually haven't worked a full day from home this whole time. I've only worked a half day from home. The buildings here that we manage fairly government occupied, and they've remained fairly operational throughout this. But we have been fairly lucky in Queensland. The restrictions, I think everyone did embrace the work from home and not going out fairly quickly, and people adapted, quite early. There's no Bondi beaches around here that, we get the backpackers partying.
I noticed you've got a black eye. Are the pubs still open?
Mate, I got that in New South Wales, to tell the truth.
Is that right?
Yeah. So on the weekend, my wife and I and a couple of friends, we went to Tenterfield, which is just over the border, southwest of here, where it was freezing over the weekend. But it wasn't a punch up at a pub or anything like that. No, it was my beautiful little dog had a rope, and so I was just kind of lifting her up, and then she all of a sudden let go, and I punched myself in the face. So
I believe you. I believe you. I've got no reason to disbelieve you whatsoever. Honest, my lord.
Yeah.
No, Kenny, that's brilliant. Look, thanks for coming on. You're an incredibly modest guy, and that's why we all love you. And I really appreciate you sort of sharing those thoughts with us in terms of that career pivot and the risk and the choices that you made. So that's fantastic. Look, before we finish up, tell me what are you excited about right now? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Oh, well, obviously coming out of COVID, so we can all travel a bit more. My parents are in Sydney, and yourself, and the guys and everybody's in Sydney, and it'd be nice to be able to come down and see you guys and family and whatnot. But so that's what I'm excited for in the short term. Longer term, I'm actually really interested to see where Brisbane goes over the next few years. So I think Brisbane is a bit of a developing city. It's really changed in the last few years, and there's a lot of infrastructure happening up here, and just seeing various parts of the city open up and really get developed and activated along the river and various parts, and it's quite exciting to see. So very interested to see how things go up here, definitely.
No, good stuff. Well, look, Kenny, from year 10 to landscape architect to surfer to labourer to asset manager to general manager in an international property firm. Thank you very much for coming on Integrated Infrastructure. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ken.
See you, Brad. Ciao.
Integrated Infrastructure is powered by North Search, specialists in executive and technical search across engineering, design, construction, property and energy markets in Australia. If you'd like to find out more about North Search or get involved with this podcast, you can click on the links in the show notes or email me directly at the address on the screen. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Integrated Infrastructure. Please tell your friends and colleagues if you did, and we hope to see you again soon.